Welcome to Module 2 of Principles of Management course. In the Module 1, we discussed about the scientific management, evolution of management, definition, concepts of management. In the Module 2, we are going to discuss about planning. In the Module 1, we discussed about some of the important functions of management, starting from planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling. Going forward, we are going to go with each functions. In the Module 2, we are going to discuss about planning, management functions. Today, we are going to discuss about concepts, objectives, components, different levels and types of planning, and importance of planning and barriers of planning. Okay, so I'm going to take you through to what is planning and why we need to discuss about planning and types of planning and everything. Okay, let us go forward. Planning, planning, everybody would have planned something, right? You and me would have definitely planned something. We often use it, we want to plan it well so that we will be very successful. So now how planning becomes an important component in the management. That's why planning becomes the basic and primary functions of management. Why planning becomes the basic and primary functions of management before control, staffing, leading, directing? Because planning is actually decides future course of action. So planning will tell me what is going to happen next. As an organization, what are we going to do? So the planning is the first step in any of the organizations in the functions of management also. So planning will decide what as an organization what we are going to do in the future. Let's say it can be next 1 year, 5 years or 10 years, and whatever the time period we are talking about. So that's why planning becomes a basic and primary functions of management. So planning is generally involved with generally consider about what is to be done, where, how, by whom it is going to be done. So planning will always talk about all these comprehensively, what we are going to do, how we are going to do, who is going to do, is it him or her, or where, is it in a plant or is it in a different place, are we going to collaborate with somebody, are we going to do on our own as an organizations, how we are going to engage people in producing the product or a service as an organization we are going to produce. So planning will actually decide about what we are going to produce, who are our customer segmentation, everything will be considered in the planning. So planning is generally a formal process whereby managers choose goals and identify actions how we will achieve the goals, and actually also allocate responsibilities. And it is important, right? Once I decide the goal and identify the actions to be done so that I can achieve the goal, then I need to allocate the responsibilities, delegate the responsibility in different functional areas, operational areas. For example, accounts department will handle the financial perspective, then operational department will handle how on the production part, then the HR department will look at how we have to do. Then we also move towards and see whether as an organization are we able to achieve the goals. It's kind of verifying, are we actually moving towards the right direction. Then in case if some contingencies are happening, there is a whole business environment is going to change, or it is changing, or moving in a different direction, then we cannot just be rigid and then continue with the same plan. You need to revise the plan. For example, sometimes plan might fail where we would have planned something but something else is happening, so we need to quickly come back and then shake ourselves and then revise the plan so that we are able to be competitive, right? Planning is very important function. That's why I said planning becomes a primary functions of management. Planning also allows managers an opportunity to adjust to the environment instead of merely reacting to it. Because why we are saying reacting into, for example, we always see some companies they will wait till some other competitors introduce some new products into the platform, or new product or a service into the business environment. Then we will quickly say, okay, come on, my competitors are introduce something, I need to introduce something more. So I will, we have seen, right? For example, I'm going to give an example. Taking a telecom industry as an example, let's say Airtel and Vodafone were bigger players, then Jio come into the picture, then they introduce so many plans on database plans, or the call wise, and there are so many plans, and then they actually disrupted the whole telecom industry as such. Then quickly Airtel and Vodafone realized that, okay, come on, we are going to lose out our market share, we need to also run the business, so we need to come up with a new plan, so that now we become a tough competitor for Jio. So that's how it is also actually allows you, rather than not to react, you need to plan what I should see, what is going to be the needs of my customer, who is going to, and let's say need of the future need of my customer. So you need to consider everything. Planning provides an opportunity to consider all the environmental perspective, so that planning becomes very efficient. Okay, planning actually increases the possibility of survival in the business by actively anticipating and managing the risks may occur. Because planning, when we are doing a planning, we always think about alternatives. Okay, what is going to happen, what will happen, is it going to be the same way? Let's say how business was functioning last year is not the same this year, and going forward we never know what kind of a challenges we are going to face. So as a business, we need to anticipate certain things, what kind of the change is going to come. For example, automation. Before these technological advancements, we all relied on a few machineries or labor intensive businesses, right? But now with a lot of technological advancement, where we see that automations become in a front run and everything being automated. Now we are talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and robotics, and so many things. We need to keep everything in mind, and then you need to see how it is going to impact my business. Am I going to make my plan accordingly? Am I going to go with a conventional method, traditional, believing that nothing going to change, let me go with the planning. So planning actually provides a lot of opportunity for businesses to anticipate, forecast things. Okay, yeah. And let us go see the objectives of planning. What are the objectives? Planning gives an organization sense of direction. Planning, it actually says, okay, what direction we are going to travel in. Okay, for example, as an organization, I'm giving an example. I'm going to decide that I'm going to produce a particular product. So that is my goal. Now the planning actually helped me to decide, okay, how I'm going to move towards. Since I need to produce a product, I know whole my organization activities has to be directed towards producing the product. Unless otherwise I do not know what I'm going to do, then there is no direction. Everybody will be like clueless, directionless. Every department will independently start to work. There is no coordination. Then organization fails. So planning actually gives a direction. Then planning focuses on objectives and results. I would say planning, the end of, at least first end of planning is the objectives. Once you contemplate an ideas, look at the alternatives, analyze the whole business environment, political, economical situations of the organizations, then you will arrive at deciding a goal. So it actually focuses attention on objectives. So you create an objective at the discussion, at the end of the planning phase, you are actually arriving at the objectives and results. People who carry out plans focus on anticipated results of the organization. It focuses on objectives and results, what we have to do as an organization, what is our goal. Okay, then it establishes a basis for teamwork. And a moment the planning decides what is our goal, how we are going to achieve the goal, then it is actually defines the basis for teamwork. For example, coordination between the functional teams, coordination within the teams, existing teams, how we are going to coordinate with each other. So we have different hierarchy, different structure in the organization, but how we are going to be connected to each other, so that we are looking at the end result, right? How we can cohesively, collectively achieve the goals. So that's where it establishes a basis for a teamwork, and it helps anticipate problems and cope with the change. Generally when during the planning, where we spend a lot of time in trying to understand what can potentially happen, how we can anticipate certain things. We always say contingency plans. Why we are talking about contingency plans? Because we are anticipating that maybe all of a sudden some new things can pop up. We may think that we are the only lonely player in the market. All of a sudden few bunch of player business organizations jump into the same market, then we are actually agitated. What do we do? So it is actually allowing us to prepare. Okay, in case I'm going to expand, I'm going to change, diversify my business, and it is actually giving you to anticipate certain problems and cope with the changes. Because in the moment you anticipate, think, forecast, trying to understand what is the possible change is going to happen, then it is actually helping an organization to avoid surprises. The moment you never anticipate any problem, anything happens will be a surprise. Organization will become stuck in a point, we cannot move forward. So that's why planning will actually help you to think, brainstorm, understand the whole business environment. Okay, planning also provides guidelines for decision making. Planning actually help you to create a set of policies. Planning actually help you, because the goal is set, it is actually helping you to create a set of policies. The moment a policy is there, it becomes a guiding principle. Okay, how we need to take a decision, or at least say how we need to react when things like this is happening, or at least policy will tell how you need to make a decision. If it is actually, like, let's say, take an example, if it is going to cost an organization 10 lakh rupees, then will be say, okay, who can take a decision. Let's say it is going to cost us more than a crore, then what is the process and who has to take a decision. It is actually setting up a policy which actually guides for the decision making. Okay, and planning is a prerequisite or precursor to all the functions of management. Unless otherwise planning cannot happen, you cannot talk about staffing, you cannot talk about organizing, coordinating, directing, leading. Nothing that sort can happen without the planning. So planning becomes the prerequisite for all other management functions. Unless otherwise planning doesn't happen, then you can never talk about, I can even imagine about the other functions of the management. So these are the objectives of the planning. Okay, we will see what are the components in the planning. When we are talking about planning, maybe we often hear this word planning, it looks very simple, but you need to understand why we have the whole module on planning, because it has got a lot of things to do. Because as I said, it is the first functions of a management. If the planning fails, subsequent activities will miserably fail, and you cannot come back to the original position, or you cannot even come to a state where you were already, right? So that's why planning, we are spending a lot of time in this module. Okay, and let us talk about the components in the planning. Objectives. So objective is nothing but aim or a goal. Okay, what we are going to, as an organization, what is our goal, what is our aim toward, because that is going to drive us our activities, day-to-day activities or functional activities, whatever we say. So objective is going to talk about the aims or goals of every organizations. Then policies, as I just told you that policy is also part of the planning, components of the planning. Policies actually tell you rules and guidelines, rules and regulations what organization has to follow. For example, let's say in an organization there is a disciplinary violations by an employee. Now we will go about the policy book. What policy says? Does policy says, okay, what are they grading these violations, disciplinary violations, in terms of how intensive it is, how how far it is going to impact my organization, respectively the action will be associated, right? Similarly, policy will become provide the rules and regulation that is going to govern the organization. Then procedures. So procedure means the way in which you can achieve, or way in which you can actually function. So it provides the procedures, so how you need to do these activities. Okay, then programs. There are maybe specific set of programs. There are no statement of outlines or a policy subject. Together, they design some programs, and then it is kind of a subset of whole activities will go around. And budget. So budgeting is also very important. Why it is coming in a planning? Budgeting is nothing but if you look at it, is kind of numerically a quantitative statement. It is talking about forecasting our revenues, cost involved, expenses going to happen. Let's say what is this actually will say decide on what should be my operational cost for this year, what would be my let's say a human resource cost for this year. It will also give me the budget for marketing budget, publicity budget, and then new product development budget, R&D budget. Budgeting actually quantitatively provides the planning. It is actually quantitatively supports the planning activity, because it actually also tells me, okay, this is the budget is been allotted, and this is what we are anticipating as a revenues from these projects or the programs or the product with this particular business unit or the segments, whatever we are talking about. So budgeting is very important. It talks about the cost perspective in terms of revenues, profit, how much you've been allotted, how we are going to generate revenue, all this being driven by the budgeting. Then strategies. Strategies is actually it decides the course of actions. It's the long-term objectives, how the course of action can be done to select the specific action to allocate the necessary resources, other than we are able to become a strategic advantages in the business. These are the components in the planning. Okay, let us understand the planning at different level. Now if you are talking about in any business environment, there can be different sizes of the organization. Maybe a small organization, medium size, and then there are large organization, multinational organization. They operate from a multiple. They will have more units, more locations, more regions. So then they will have to have a different layers of planning. For example, if you are a small unit, so it is easier, right? It's a comprehensive where every decision in every planning is done at the same unit, considering the things at this same level. But when the moment you are talking about you are operating in a different regions, locations, or different countries, then the planning has to be done in a different way, because that's why there are different levels of planning. First is a corporate level planning. Corporate level planning is nothing but where we are talking about the mission statement of the organizations. So maybe I will have 100 different company or offices in different regions or locations, but as a corporate I need to make a bigger decisions. That's where the corporate level planning. For example, for this whole year, how much we are going to plan. what is our target. Let's say, I say I wanted to create a revenue of 2000 crores for this year. That's a corporate level strategy. Then it will be like divided into different level. Then what, the business level. So for a specific businesses level, you will make a business level strategies. Planning will be done at the specific business level. For example, TCS, take an example of TCS as an organization. Under the Tata Group, there are multiple businesses. Even under the TCS, there will have a multiple business functions, business plans. So then you will have specific plans for each businesses you do. Then operating level. Okay, now business level plan is done. Now the operating level, and now how we are going to operate this particular. For example, goal has been set. This is my client, this is my customer, this is how I need to do. Then I need to plan my operations, how I am going to make these operations smooth, so that there is no lagging, or there is no failure in delivering it. Okay, then the functional level. Functional level means, again, I go back to the different functional areas, operations, HR, finance, marketing. There are different functional areas. So you need to make planning at the each functional level. So this is how the different levels of planning happens. Okay, now we will now look into the different types of plans. Now we looked at the components and the different levels of plan. Now we are going to look at the types of the planning. One of the important foremost function is planning, as we are already discussing. It also differed by types and levels of the organization. So now we will look at the types. Operational plan. So it is the manager who one uses to accomplish his or her job responsibility. It becomes a single or a continuing plan. Operational level plan is very important, because how we are going to operate, or how we are going to do so that our general activities are going smoothly and aligning with achieving the organization goal. Then tactical plan. It is generally focused on the tactics needed to activate a strategy or make it working in the organization. It's specifically for certain specific activities or certain set of deliverables to be delivered. So we have for example, my competitors are making some new approaches. Then I need to have a tactical plans where I make a different tactical, so that I actually activate a strategy, do something more, so that I am progressing, I am moving. Then strategic plan. Strategic plan, it outlines the steps, outlines design the goals of the entire organization as a whole in a systematic direction. It also decides the course of actions, right? Then contingency planning. So we've been talking about this contingency planning, right? So contingency planning, you need to always look at the alternate course of actions. So let's say I'm going in a direction of A. I anticipate so let's say direction of A has stuck in after traveling for 75%. Now there should be a contingency plan. Okay, when you're stuck here, you need to divert this way and then move, right? So that's how the contingency plan comes into picture, where it talks about the alternate course of action. In case I fail in this direction, what should I do? Should I move to this direction, or it should be direction of a B, or should be direction of a C? So I should have a contingency planning. Okay, now now we are going to look at different, based on the types, we are going to see types of planning. Now based on the time. Okay, so long range planning, generally a long term plan. As an organization, we always have a long term plan. Let's say what I'm going to do for next 5 years or 10 years, that can be a long term plan. Let's say I wanted to become a market player in the particular sector or particular industry, particular domain. So that can be my long term plan. Let's say I wanted to expand my business, or let's say I have a one office. Now I wanted to have 10 offices in 10 different locations. That can be my long term plan. Medium range, where neither short term nor a long term, where it is talking about, okay, so I have my foresight planning, where I am looking at, okay, now I will plan like this, in the midterm planning, medium range planning, where it is not that long, pretty long. It is about, let's say, 2 years planning. Now short range planning, which is, let's say, I'm going to plan for next 6 months, or I'm going to keep it restricted only for a 1 year, because let's say as an organization, we are understanding that the business is changing so rapidly, so I cannot make my plans long-term plans. Of course, long-term plans is important for an organization growth, but for certain decision making, certain investments, I do not want to make a long-term planning, because business is volatile, uncertainty, and I'm on a rapidity of change, so I wanted to restrict with the short-term ranges. So I made to make 6 months or 1 year planning. Okay, now basis of the managerial level, how these plans are different. So the managerial level or strategic plan. Strategic plan is generally for a whole organization. As a strategic plan, it always for a whole organization, and it decides the course of action for the whole organization. How we are strategic planning to decide what we have to do, how we have to do, and all this. Now administrative planning. So administrative planning, generally for administrative purposes, how we need to plan our administrative activities, who has to report to whom, because there is important that reporting is also important. How we need to coordinate between people. Administrative purpose is also important. Otherwise, it become too complicated and messy. Things are messy, then it is very difficult to understand, right? That's why administrative plan is important. Then operation level planning. We are continuing to hear about this operational planning now. So operational planning is nothing but how we are going to at the operational level, at the department level, how things have to be done. Okay, now we will look at in terms of repetitive of the operations in a firm. Planning will divided into two things. Standing plan. Planning is developed once and may be used for many times, that tend to be recurring and modified as per the needs of the organization. Standing plan, for example, we are talking about Standing Orders Act. Every organization might have a standing order. So that is going to be the standard rules book. It is a long term one. As an organization, we have made a policy which will be followed for several years. So that is a standing plan. Then single use plan, for example, let's say I'm going to handle with one particular customer. So for the particular customer, there are specific needs from the customer. Customized planning I'm done to, so that I'm able to maintain or manage the customer. So this is a single use plan. I'll make a plan only to this specific customer. When I finish my business with a particular customer, that plan becomes obsolete or redundant. It is not even applicable or not even relevant to the other areas, okay, or other sections of the organizations. So that's a single use plan. Okay, now we will understand why planning is important. Okay, planning actually clarifies the objectives of the organization, because when we are planning, it will actually tell me, okay, so considering let us talk about a pest analysis, political, economical, social and technological analysis. After conducting this pest analysis, we will be able to understand, okay, as an organization, are we going to make the goals set like this, or are we going to make some changes? So it is actually planning actually helps to clarifies and state the clear objectives for the organizations, because for example, I set some goals which is actually can be refuted, or which will be you will fail in achieving this, then that is actually after spending a lot of efforts, money, and then people, then it become no use, right? Why planning has to be help the framing the objective of the organization. And planning also economizes the operation, how it can actually reduce the expenses in terms of the proper planning actually will identify, okay, what would be the unnecessary processes, or it will also help you to reduce the wastages in terms of time being spent, money being spent, resources being spent on some activity which is not actually relevant to achieve our organization goals. So planning will tell you, okay, cut down these activities, so that you don't need to unnecessarily spend on these activities, because that is nowhere related or aligning to our organization goals. So planning actually economizes your operation in terms of let's say using less resources but maximum output. So that way it will actually economizes the operations. And planning precedes the control, as I said in the beginning of the lecture. So planning is the precursor for all the functions of the management. Unless there is no planning, we cannot talk about organizations or control. Because when you're talking about control, I need to know against what standard I need to measure. For example, I have never set a target for an individual. How will I say this person is performing or not? Right? Let's say I've now take an example. I've set a target for one particular individual that you need to sell a particular item. Okay, every day's target is 10. Now I set the goal. Now he is selling at the rate of 5 per day. Then against the set parameter, I am going and asking him, okay, come on, we set your target of 10, but you are only achieving 5. So then actually I can control, I can make a control, I can make a decisions. I will say, you need to improve upon, corrective actions can be done. So unless otherwise I do not know the set goals, then it is very difficult for a control. That's why planning precedes the control. Okay. Planning provides for the future. As we said, planning actually tells me what I am going to do in the future. What are my goals? Because goals are always set ahead of us, right? Once the goal is set, then we are actually making our activities, deciding the activities towards the direction of the goals. So it is actually provides me the direction for the future, how we need to do progress, because planning actually helps me to decide what are my activities, what are my goals. Okay, and planning increases the efficiency of the all managerial functions, because planning involves people, and planning involves considering alternate course of actions, alternate decisions, because planning, for example, I am not just taking only one direction. I always do lot of brainstorming, exploration, considering all the technological assessment, economic condition of my organization, political situation, general, macroeconomic conditions of the country, and microeconomic conditions in terms of my industry, domain specific. Considering all that, I do a planning. And then I also see my resources availability in the organization. Considering that resources, I'll plan mitigately, so that I always able to have a higher efficiency. I can spend some resources which I can expect a better return. That's why it actually increases the efficiency of all managerial functions. It helps you to provide a clear direction, so that you can able to control, plan, coordinate, organization, all things can fall in place. And for example, it also helps you to decide. For example, I'm going to have a product, then it will tell me how many people you need to hire. Let's say I'm going to increase my business expansions, then I need to know how many people I should hire. So it is actually helping my human resource function also. Okay, barriers of planning. So though we are talking about importance of planning, types of planning, why planning is important, how it is going to help the organization, all we studied, but we need to also understand the barriers of planning, some limitations in the planning also. So sometimes inability to plan, some organization, or inadequate planning, losing out or not considering a complete set of information, rather with a incomplete set of information you make a plan. Or let's say you fail to assess what is your existing resources, but you made a plan and goals, and you are started your activity, then it is actually a limitation. And if you are not preparing a planning basis on the scientific principles or a scientific way of planning, then you are actually making an inadequate planning. That will actually going to cost the organization. And lack of commitment to the planning process. Management cannot foresee the changing pattern of time, cost, resources due to lack of commitment. Unless otherwise, as an organization, as a top level management, you do not have a commitment to spend time in planning process, then you will actually fail. Because why? Unless otherwise you do not spend your commitment time, devote your time for the planning process, you will not anticipate what is the future, how it is going to behave. If you do not do that particular exercise, you failing, which what will happen, you will make a inefficient planning, that will actually going to cost an organization again. Okay, and inferior information, as I said earlier. So when we have a very less information, if we are not able to make a better forecasting, we are with a limited information. If we make some forecasting, informations are very less, and then sometimes we will be only most of the time data driven approaches, we go with the previous data set, right? Sometimes maybe we would never had a particular process, but we using that data, and then you make a decision, then it's become an inferior information. What you are decided is not relevant, considering what you are having now. Okay, then focusing on present at the expense of the future. Planning yields results of the present, do not necessarily will bring the same in the long term as the other factors are unseen. Why we say? Because what we always anticipate, okay, as of now, today we are doing really bad, doing really well, considering the fact that maybe as an organization your resources are better, your products are better, and your plans are better, but you cannot anticipate the same in the future course of action, because you never know that how your business environment is going to behave, or we never know that how political situation or organization, countries policies might change. For example, if you take the example from US, United States of America, where President Donald Trump is imposing new policies, curbing or some visa policy changes, and all that will definitely going to impact the multinational organization, how we are going to plan your manpower forces, or the technological inputs, skilled people you wanted to have. So you cannot plan that way. You cannot be only focusing on the present and not kind of seeing the unforeseen information, then it is difficult. Okay, then too much of reliance on the organization's planning unit. In a large organization, planning unit itself looks after it, but they do not implement, so that the effect is not assessed. You cannot only spend your resources and everything only on a planning. You need to ensure that it has been translated into an action that has been properly implemented. Because having a better plan, it is not going to assure you that you will have the better outcome. Correct? So concentrating on the control variables. Planning sometimes concentrate on the events and resources within the organization, but it might fail not to consider the what is happening outside the organization, because sometimes we always limit ourselves that okay, or within the organization we have the resource, we are having this, this is my request from my clients, these are the demands I have, these are the forecasts I'm making. We always heavily rely on the internal sources, but we are actually failing to look at outside environment. For example, take an example. I'm going to quote an example from BSNL as again going back to the telecom industry. So BSNL, of course, it's our national organizations where where BSNL actually failed in the competition market. The reason being that they have not looked at the how external environment is going to behave, how my customers are going to respond, because there is a huge transition has happened from the let's say talk about calling to a data usage, right? So people have quickly transitioned to a huge amount of data usage, but unless otherwise your speed is not that, then you cannot survive in the market. That's how BSNL has actually went behind in the market, right? So these are some examples we need to talk about. You cannot only talk about how within the organizations resources are available, right? Okay, we will see the process of planning. There are steps involved in the planning. One is the perception of the opportunities. As a manager, you need to identify what are my opportunities are available, so that I can consider that in making the planning. Then setting the objectives. So once we are discussing about it, then we need to identify and say what are my goals and what are my aims are. Then setting the planning premises, that is very important. You need to understand what are the premises under which you are going to work on. So you need to setting the planning premises is very important, and where the planning will take up, how we are going to decide and all that. Then deciding the alternatives. So it is always important to look at the alternatives. When you are coming with the plan A, you need to have plan B, C, D, all alternatives, and then compare the evaluation of alternatives. Next step, subsequent step. When we have alternatives, you need to evaluate the alternatives. Okay, what are the pros and cons of each of these alternatives, and then you need to decide on the best alternatives. As I have A, B, C, D, 4 plans, and then I have evaluated the pros and cons. Then I need to understand and then select the best possible and appropriate alternatives, so that I can use that as my action. Then formulating the supportive plans. Of course, when you have the main plan, you need to also parallelly have the supportive plan, so that it can actually support your main plan of the organization. Then establishing the sequence of activities. Yes, I decided these are my activities, these are my goals and aims. How I am going to create the sequence of activities, so that I can better efficiently plan it. There is no overlapping of the time or resource or cost. Okay, so I can efficiently use it. Then ensuring the participant plan must be communicated for large participation of the employees and management. Plan, if you will, if you just plan it and keep it only at the top level, if it is not penetrating or moving to the people at the lower level, then it has become very difficult. Planning has to be consciously planned, and it has to be communicated, so that everybody knows what is our goals are. Right? Then scope for the future evaluation. I know it should be always have some scope for future evaluations and modification of the planning. You cannot have a rigid planning. Let's say I've decided, unless otherwise we reach the end, we cannot make any changes. We cannot do that way. Planning should always have some scope for the mid evaluations or any need for the evaluation. It has to be considered. Okay. Yeah. So today's lecture we have discussed about the definition of the planning and importance, types of planning, levels of planning, and we also discussed on the process of planning, how planning is happening and how we are to set the plans. Thank you.